Hi there. Well, I've got in front of me the wing from my Great Plains Trainer 60. It was a build that I posted on YouTube. If you have a look in the description below, there'll be a video to this build series. And it is an absolutely gorgeous plane to fly. It's got no vices and it just lands as sweet as anything. Well, I was at the airfield and I hadn't flown it that day, and it was parked up at the side of the pits, and a friend of mine, his model lost control, he lost contact with the plane, I believe, and it came down and it hit my Great Plains Trainer 60. You might have noticed there's a big hole in it. Well, you know what, at the end of the day, this kind of stuff happens. It's that kind of hobby. Sometimes things happen, and at the end of the day, it's nobody's fault, it's just what happens. And the way I look at it is there's always an upside, and the upside is we're going to be doing a repair video today showing how to repair that gaping hole in the front of my wing. I think that's where the propeller nut straight onto the wing there flipped over. That might be damaged there from the propeller, and there's a bit of dented in damage here and there actually. So anyway, I mean, he was gutted. He was really, you could tell he felt really bad about this. But like I say, this kind of stuff happens. So let's get this thing fixed and back on the plane. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open this up and assess the damage, and then we can start to think about fixing it. Now, I've got a brand new blade in my scalpel because I want to make some quite delicate cuts. I don't want to have to push hard. I don't want to cut through the good balsa that's there. I just want to cut through the film, the covering film. Now, this covering film is Easy Coat, and if you know anything about my channel, you'll know I hate Easy Coat. I used it once, I did a review, this is the once, and it's just absolutely horrible stuff. It's a clear film with a glue backing, and enough said, I have done a review. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go along and just cut the covering, and you know, we could try and cut this closer to the damage, but I don't really see the point of trying to do it too close. Now, this film, I did wonder what this film would come off like, and it's horrible, isn't it? Look at it. And I mean, it's not even a thick film, so it's not peeling off particularly well. But what I'm going to do anyway is I'm going to clear this section probably to here, because that looks damaged. So I'm going to cut the film off, and then sand it up a little bit from there to there. And I will probably, because we've got to replace this, that's damaged there. For now, I will just do to yeah, why don't we just come all the way down here? I mean, you can make decisions like that as to how far you want to actually come, but I'm going to put in a whole new piece of covering, I think, on this section, and we can see these ribs once we get it opened up, and we can see if there's any damage. Right, I've got all the covering film off that I'm going to take off for the moment, and you can see it's left this horrible glue. Now, I'm not too fussed about that because I'm going to put the same colour on anyway. I could have got away probably with not cutting out such a big area, but I thought, well, I'm going to put the same cover, I'm going to put it on. Let's just put a big area, and then I can get to this dent here as well. I'm not going to cut that out because that is where the fiberglass is, and I don't really think that's done much damage, so I'm going to leave that. But I am going to repair this. Now, what we need to do is decide what we're going to replace here and what we're going to cut out. Now, this bit is fairly solid. If we just have a look at the underside as well, you can see the underside is okay once we get past the leading edge. The leading edge here has just been broken and gone in. So there's, I think that's looks like 1/4 inch square, and that's just come out. So we need to replace that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a ruler and make some quite straight cuts here from the ribs where this needs to come out, And if I just put my ruler on there like that, because that's good, we'll leave that. And we want a nice straight cut because we're going to join into this. There we go. And that will come out now. And now we need to make a nice straight cut down this front edge, but I'll be really generous on that for the moment. And then we can trim it back. Right, so we've got quite a bit to go yet there. And what we'll do is we'll just cut this back and get it as nice and as square as possible. And I think now I'm going to leave that there. I'm not going to come all the way back to that rib, because what it will allow me to do, I'm just straightening this up here, what it will allow me to do then is to put a little bit of balsa on the underside like that as a support for when we start to sheet this. If I come right up to the rib, then I won't have anything to attach that bit of wood to. So I'm going to do the same here. Okay, a little bit more of an update. I'm getting there now, almost ready to start repairing this. I've used my set square to try and get these cuts as square as possible. That still needs a little bit trimming off there. It's just if these are square, it'll make it a lot easier when we come to put in the new timber. The leading edge here, 1/4 inch square, I put a diagonal cut on that, and I'm going to put a diagonal cut on here, and then just going through that 1/4 inch piece only, and then we can cut that out and we can splice a new piece in there. It'll take a bit of getting right to get those diagonals cut just right, but that will make it a stronger fix on the front there. Right, well, it's now time to start making good on some of this repair. Now, I've got a T-pin and I've just put a 90-degree bend on that T-pin. And what we're going to do is we're going to push it through the balsa here, and we're going to see, nice and gently, there we go. And now we're going to see if we can just lift this balsa up, push that down, and just knit this back together. That just pulled through a little bit. So we'll just have another go, and just nice and gently does it. Now that isn't too bad. Hopefully you can see that. It'd have been better if I hadn't pulled it through, but it did, and it's going to need sanding anyway, and maybe a tad of filler. But that now is quite level, except for a little piece that's just sticking up. So what I'm going to do is just give that a little bit of CA. Careful not to CA my pin in. There we go. If I get a bit of balsa like this, and we just cut it into a small point and get off some of this blue, and not doing this very well in front of the camera, and we'll just put a little bit of balsa in that hole, and the CA again. There we go. And once that's gone off, we just cut that off, and now we've sorted our hole. And so really that now can be sanded. Oh, this blue glue is horrible. But that, it looks pretty good now. That dent has more or less gone. Hopefully you can see that has been repaired. Right, I've now got my piece of leading edge that's going to be put in, and it's worth also pointing out that I've had a good look around inside here, and all the ribs are solid. There's the shear webbing there that's still intact, there's no damage to it. The spars look good. Now this is not 1/4 inch square, which I thought. It's actually 3/8, but it looks smaller just because it's been sanded and profiled. So I'm going to get this CA'd in now, and once that's in place, I will sand and probably plane a little bit of this and get that nicely into shape in line with this, and then we can think about adding in the piece of sheeting. So I will get that glued in now. Right, well, I've got this leading edge roughly to shape now, still need profiling finally, and I've cut out this bit under here that needs filling where there's just a little bit of damage, and I've cut it out 3/8 wide, and I've got a piece of 3/8 square balsa, and I'm just going to slot that in sort of about the depth of the thickness of the sheeting here. No point in putting it all the way in and just adding extra weight. So that I can feel that with the back of my fingers hit underneath, that it's just starting to feel at the same level or slightly sticking out from the sheeting on the underside. I can now just run some C8 along that, and then we can trim that and sand it to fit. I could almost just run along there with a scalpel like that, and then do the last bit, just a bit of sanding. Right, well, the last thing to do now before we give this a final profile is to get this bit sheeted. Now, we could try putting the sheeting on like that, but it'll be a lot better if we can have some little tabs here, here, and maybe even just 3 little tabs there as well. So to start with, I've cut some balsa with the grain going across like that, so it's nice and flexible, and I'm going to put that in there, and I'm just going to hold that up like that and CA that in place. Now, I should really be putting plastic on this just so that I don't glue my fingers to the balsa, but we'll risk it. If I do this top edge here, I'm sure this will glue my fingers to it probably, but it'll just so much harder if I'm putting plastic in. Ah, there we go, look. Still got my fingers free, so I just run a little bit of CA along there. Now that's just lifted up a little bit there, so we will need to make sure that this is nice and smooth and ready to accept the sheeting when we come to it. So I'm going to do another one there, and like I said, I will do some tabs, 1, 2, 3, but the grain on the tabs will run this way, because obviously if it was crossways like this they wouldn't be very strong. Okay, so we've got all the balsa dust out, no point in putting shavings in there. And what I'm going to do now is CA this in place, but I'm not going to try and do it all at once. I'm going to do this top edge here, and I'm just going to hold the sheeting horizontal like that, or almost horizontal in line with this, so I get a nice CA'd joint. And I'm just going to touch the centre first, just wait for that to go off, and stuck my finger to it. Right, and now I'm going to do this bit. Okay, and now I'm going to do this end. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just look inside, and I'll just make sure, let me just zoom out a little bit. Okay, I'm going to look inside now, very carefully lift that up and just put a dab on those tabs and make sure that they're glued on those tabs. And I will just run along here now and make sure that this is a good join. And we'll give that a second, just get rid of that. It's interesting how the CA upsets the, mobilises the coloured glue from this horrible covering. I'm glad I'm putting the same covering back on, I don't have to worry about it too much. So now this balsa is a little bit harder than I would like, so I'm really hoping it doesn't break. Right, that looks pretty good. Now what I'm going to do, because I can't CA those ribs very well, I'm going to put in a little bit of whitewood glue or aliphatic resin. I'll probably use some aliphatic resin actually, just on the top of those ribs. So I'll just get that, and then that will help glue those ribs onto the sheeting, and then we can CA all of the sides. So I'll give it a liberal dose in there, and this is how I put the sheeting on originally. I will have done it just like this. Oops, you can't see, sorry, I'm off camera. And a bit more of the aliphatic resin, and we'll just go in and we'll just put it along there on top of those ribs. Like I say, I'll put in I'm being quite generous with that. So now we'll get rid of that, and I'm just going to very carefully now tease this down or bend it down. I'll adjust the camera actually, because I'm going to need to stand the wing on edge. Right, it's never easy trying to do this and line it up with the camera, but essentially I'm going to pull it down, I think, in the centre first, and just put some CA. Let's do it left-handed so you can see. So I'm going to bring that in and just CA that in place there. And if we can get that done first, hold that nice and tight. Hopefully that won't pop up. Right, I just saw the CA smoke a bit, so that has gone off. Now we can go along and we can do this end as well. Hold it down. Not sure that's gone off yet. Could perhaps use some kicker, but there we go. And I'm not a great user of kicker, to be honest. I very rarely use it. So now we'll just hold that in place and wait for that to go off, and we'll CA the sides. There we go. So we can get this back on the bench and just move the camera down. And now I can go along these joints, and I will just hold that down as I do it. Not that I think it's going anywhere, to be honest. There we go. Plenty of CA dribbled in there. And now what we can do is we can go along with our scalpel. Has that gone off yet? And we can just cut off the excess. And just careful not to take too much off. I think that will do. There we go. So we can now take that outside and give that a sand and get that back to profile, and then all we've got to do is cover it. So I'll get outside and give this a sand. Right, well, I've now got these repairs done and I'm ready to start covering it. So if we have a closer look, you can see that's blended in really quite nicely. As I'm sanding it, the glue's picking up a little bit. It is absolutely horrible stuff, this Easy Coat. And you will see that, no doubt, I'm sure, but I think it will blend in quite nicely. And at the end of the day, it's an honest repair. We've got this bit repaired here, and there's a little bit of a dent there, but I'm going to leave that because that's where the fiberglass is for the central section. Now we can see on the underside as well. I mean, this covering is really tatty, and it is going to be a project at some point to recover this whole model and get rid of this horrible Easy Coat. I mean, it's peeling off everywhere, but I have so much on at the moment, I just don't want to think about that. Just want to get this quick repair, which will probably take me about an hour, and it's probably going to take me less than that to do the covering. So I'm not going to cover the covering in this video, but of course I will show you in a second when I've got it covered, the finished look. I've done loads of videos on covering, and there's the original covering video which you can watch if you're interested. So anyway, I'm going to get on now and just stick a red patch and a blue patch on. Job done. Okay, well, I've now got this finished. I've got the covering on, and you can see that is more or less seamless. I mean, you can't really see where that balsa's been put in. You can see the joins on the covering material, but there's no way around that other than doing the whole wing. I think that's where that gaping hole was, just there. So if I bring that in even closer. So I'm really pleased with that, and I can't wait now to get back out to the airfield and start flying these lovely Great Plains Trainer 60 again. So anyway, I hope you found that interesting and useful. Thanks very much for watching.